Will the Cowboys spend $15 million or more on Randy Gregory in free agency? And it's a mock draft Monday here on the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Who does Danny Kelly at the Ringer have the Cowboys selecting at pick number 24? All that and so much more in this episode of the show.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys. Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. As always, we wanted to mention that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher, and I'm joined by Leighton McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Leighton, we're going to be talking about the Cowboys free agents going into free agency next month. Who was the one free agent that you think the Cowboys must try to get back during this period?
Man, must is such an operative word there. I would say that the guy that I feel like they certainly feel like they need to get back the most would be Randy Gregory. I mean, I think that what they don't want to do is try to too quickly accelerate any kind of move from Parsons to kind of go from off-ball linebacker to full-time edge. Yep. I think they want to kind of keep him in the role that they're doing, and in order to do that, they need to have a starter opposite of DeMarcus Lawrence. And really, even if DeMarcus Lawrence, may not be for the long-term plans of the Cowboys, either way, that makes Randy Gregory's re-signing even more important. They need to make sure they have some kind of production there on the defensive inside with or without DeMarcus Lawrence. That's why I think Gregory probably is the guy that they're going to target the heaviest.
I agree with you. And I think the Cowboys do as well. And so does Pro Football Focus, who they wrote a really good article this morning kind of laying out what every free agent is expected to get on the open market. And that's what we're going to look at today. I think I always have 8 or so big name free agents, and we're going to decide if we would sign them to this contract or no. It's really that simple. Let's start with Randy Gregory. Layton, according to Pro Football Focus, they have him at 2 years, $12.5 million with $15 million guaranteed. But they mentioned that he could potentially go up to $15 million if a team is really in desperate need of a pass rusher. But 2 years, $25 million total. Are you in?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me that makes sense, and I agree. While I agree that I think that that edge rusher is always a position that could go for a higher rate than we all expect. It's a volatile market too. I mean, we've seen, that year that Cliff Averill and all those guys signed with Seattle, the market got super depressed. And this year, you look at some of the available free agents. There's some guys at the top, including Von Miller, Chandler Jones. And then on top of that, you add in the fact that this is quite an incredible edge class as a draft class. It's got guys up top. It's got deep guys. So there is a possibility that Randy's market might get depressed a little bit by the fact that there's just a dearth of pass rushing defensive ends on the market. So the Cowboys can hope for that, cross their fingers, and then maybe hope that Randy kind of gives them some sort of hometown discount for how patient they've been with him. So I think that's what the Cowboys are hoping. But yeah, I certainly could see it getting up to $15 million if teams get desperate.
I'll be honest, Layton, that number feels high to me for a couple of different reasons.
Which one? The 12.5?
Either the 12.5 or the 25 million over 2 for a couple of reasons, right? We love Randy Gregory, and ultimately, if it comes down to the Cowboys can have him at that number or not, I'd rather have him. However, man, you could make an argument that he maybe shouldn't get that much money in free agency. You're looking at somebody over the last 3 years has played less than 700 snaps.
Yeah,
for the last 3 years. I mean, that's not a very big sample size. On top of that, he had an injury this year. He's 29 years old. He doesn't have big sack production. Plus, he has all the suspensions. So, man, why should I pay him $12.5 million a year when I can get a very comparable pass rusher that's been more reliable and maybe better against the run than Gregory? I'm not saying that to knock Gregory. I wonder if that's still a little bit high for Gregory.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think the thing I would point out is that, despite being 29 and despite the suspensions, I think he's going to get better. I mean, I think he's still, you said it, he's only played 700 snaps in the last 3 years, and he's only ever had 1 year where he's gone into an offseason program and completed an entire offseason program without being disrupted with the suspension. Look, we could talk about the suspensions, but honestly, that's kind of a non-factor at this point. I mean, he's not going to get.
We know that, right? I'm just wondering if other teams are going to view it that way, right?
Sure, and maybe listen, we can't account for how other teams view that situation, right? They may view it negatively, even though marijuana is a drug that they're not really testing for anymore. So they may still view it as, does this guy love football? Because they don't know the guy, like the Cowboys do. So. For me, I think that there's still upside here because he just hasn't played a bunch of football despite being 29 years old. He is kind of a very unique situation, right? He's an elite type of talent, as far as skill set and physical ability, that just never got a full opportunity to kind of unveil that and unfold that on the team because he kept on having a start-stop situation because of suspension. So I think honestly that his projected contract is a fascinating look at kind of how valuation gets made in the NFL because his situation is so incredibly unique.
Yeah, I don't disagree. What's so fascinating here is some of the other guys. Like, we think of Melvin Ingram as somebody who maybe hasn't been the most durable, but he played 730 snaps this year on 2 different teams. And that is more than what Gregory has played over the last 3 years. Or Justin Houston. Justin Houston has been a Iron Man, basically. He's played a ton of snaps over the last couple of years. They have him projected at 1 year, $7 million. So would you rather pay Gregory 12.5, or would you rather pay Ingram 7.5, Justin Houston 7, or somebody like Hassan Reddick, 12 million, who's had double-digit sacks in back-to-back years and has never missed a game? That's what's so interesting here.
Yeah, and especially you add in the fact that, I mean, those are all kind of very different situations, right?
Sure.
Like you talk about like Chandler Jones, Von Miller. It's like, when do those guys hit a wall? With guys like Reddick, I think actually Gregory is closer probably to a Reddick situation, right? Where, a physical specimen with a potential upside that just waited 6 or 7 years for whatever reason to kind of unveil themselves to the league.
2 years younger than Gregory, though, still.
Yeah, I also think I trust Gregory's production more than I trust Hassan Reddick's. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But yeah, I think it's lots. The market is interesting, and to say the least. And that's again why I think that the market's going to be depressed, is because the teams have the opportunity to get all kinds of different folks, and they can, that is going to help them dictate the price a little bit.
I just think about the Cowboys. I think you can get a better deal than $12.5 million there.
I wouldn't know. I certainly wouldn't be surprised. And I agree with you. Like I would pay $12.5 million per year, but I'm not going to be shocked if the Cowboys get him for less than that.
That's not my starting offer if I'm Steven Jones.
No.
Right? Like it's much, much lower than that. All right, let's do another one before we take a break. Dalton Schultz, 4 years, $32 million guaranteed, $52 million total. So average $13 million a year.
Yeah, I was just actually, this is terrible radio, but I was just looking up, because I've been meaning to look up what is the franchise tag for the tight end position.
It's like 11 to 12 million.
See, that's probably what I would do with Schultz. If you wanted to keep him, you franchise tag him, because the tight end franchise tag is so low, especially compared to like wide receiver or something. I think it'd be, you get him for underneath that $13 million, and then you could, or you could use like was it you? I think someone in the DM had suggested a
transition tag.
Transition tag. I like that idea too, because you can kind of at least match it. But franchise tag would work simply because the number is so low that you could get him for probably less than what he's going to get in the market, and then you can kind of figure out whether you want to do something long term, or what you do is you franchise him and then you draft a tight end, and then that gives you a year of good tight end play to kind of develop someone down the road, or hope someone like McEwen steps up and becomes that guy next year.
I love Dalton Schultz, but I'm letting him leave.
No, you don't.
I do love Dalton Schultz. I'm letting him leave at $13 million a year. That's just too much. What I would do instead Looking at this really good article by Pro Football Focus, OJ Howard, 1 year, $3 million.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that for sure. Okay.
Yeah, do that and have Blake Jarwin, you have Sean McEwen, then you draft somebody on day 3. I'd rather just use that money elsewhere, right?
I think that's fair. The only thing I would say is that, I think Dalton Schultz, despite how much people say otherwise, I think he gives you something as a two-way player that OJ Howard isn't quite there yet, or at least hasn't quite done that in the NFL the way that he's shown to do it in college. So, but that's what you're paying for. So I think
you're paying for somebody who played every single game last year. I think that was the big concern going into the season is how durable is he? But he played every game. We know he's at least capable as a blocker. I'd rather save that $9 million and grab somebody else who we're going to talk about in just a second, Layton. But let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll do more free agents. I want to tell you guys about Built Bar. It's this time of year, everybody's already given up on their New Year's resolutions, but not us because we have Built Bar by our side. Built Bars are just so good and they taste fantastic and they're healthy for you because they only have 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to your favorite candy bar, which is like 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and dozens of net carbs. They also have so many great flavors, including mint brownie, coconut, almond. And the new flavor this month is white chocolate cookies and cream. They are all delicious, and the new flavors are coming out all of the time. So go to built.com and use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your next order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, let's get to some more guys. Next one, Michael Gallup. According to Pro Football Focus, 2 years, $12.5 million per year, $14 million guaranteed, $25 million total.
I mean, that seems like a lot of money for a guy coming off an ACL, especially I understand he's supposed to be 100% by August, which we could do a whole podcast on that, frankly. Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think this one really depends on what they plan on doing with Amari Cooper, I think if they decide that they're definitely moving on from Amari Cooper, then I feel like this becomes a lot more palatable. Otherwise, I think that if you could figure out a way to get him on a team-friendly deal, if you're not going to spend on Dalton Schultz, then you probably should get Gallup. But otherwise, I think I'm probably okay with letting him walk if you need to, picking up a comp pick, unless he's willing to sign some sort of, very team-friendly deal. I think he's been a very good player. I think he's been someone that you could really rely on as a number 2 and maybe a low end number 1 if you have an injury or something. But I think that for the Cowboys, it's just probably too much money. And there's wide receivers, much like the pass rusher market, there's a pretty hefty and robust wide receiver market, both in the free agency and in the draft. So I think that's probably the sign that Gallup might be moving on.
I thought $12.5 million was a little rich until I went and looked at the wide receiver market over the last couple of years and signings in seasons. Like Nelson Aguilar got $11 million last year. He's never had a 1,000-yard season in his career. Corey Davis got $12.5 million. Gallup's numbers blow him out of the water. Robbie Anderson got $15 million. Cortland Sutton got $15 million. Jarvis Landry, $15.1 million. Brandon Cooks, $16.2 million. Like Kenny Golladay, $18 million. There's really no reason at all for Gallup to settle for anything less than $12 million a year.
The market is out of whack, man. I mean, I just don't understand it because it's like it's not like there isn't a ton of wide receivers in the market. There are. And there's also about to be every year, like the last 4 years, it seems like there has been hundreds of wide receivers coming into the league that are at least playable, like maybe not superstars, but then again, none of these guys are superstars. Michael Gallup, Kenny Golladay, Nelson Aguilar, these guys aren't superstars. Like
I'll give you a contract that Gallup had to love that happened during this season. The Broncos gave Tim Patrick, a 29-year-old receiver, a 2-year deal worth $20 million with $18 million guaranteed.
I mean, even if you want to, look, that one's ridiculous for, him bebeing a nobody, not a nobody, but something like not somebody who's getting a ton of, yeah. And I mean, just look at, the kid in the Cardinals, Hopkins, I mean, his is the top of the market deal, and it's like above the number 2 guy by orders of magnitude.
$5 million more than Julio. Yep.
The deals are, the market in general for the wide receivers is just completely out of whack. It's just, there's no consistency to it. It seems to be just all over the place. Even for the elite guys, it's like, there's just huge amounts of separation between these guys. I don't know. I think for the Cowboys, like, you better be interested in getting into the market with someone specific who's going to have a very kind of regulated market, like a slot receiver or something like that, where there's just like a smaller pool and it's a little bit more, kind of just under control. I don't know how much I would want to get involved in this free agent wide receiver market, unless you just told Gallup something like, hey, go get what offer you can and then bring it back to us and we can say hi. But I, honestly, like, the wide receiver market is so out of whack. I certainly wouldn't want to get into like a bidding war with anybody in this.
All right, next one, Cedric Wilson. And this one's really interesting. I'm going to phrase it to you 2 different ways. What if the Cowboys keep Amari Cooper, have CeeDee Lamb, Cedric Wilson at 2 years, $5.5 million per year, $11 million total? Are you interested?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm interested simply because I think he can do a lot of different things for you, and I think when you pay him $5.5 million, you're definitely getting that money. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, whether it's he produces as a wide receiver, I think you're going to get that money back just on all the other things that he can do, plus his wide receiving ability. So, I kind of think that Cedric Wilson is someone that they should just. Like, he should be someone that they just resign. Like, I mean, because he could do so many different things for you, whether it's the trick stuff that you like, Kellen Moore likes to do. Sure. He's a returner. He's a solid receiver. Dak trusts him. There's just, and he's young. He's not going to cost you very much money. He's reliable. He can produce. He's shown that he can produce. I think Cedric Wilson is a no-brainer, just because he's one of the rare guys that you can pay $5.5 million. And that guy that you're getting on your team is someone that you can trust to produce in the big time situation when you need them. And that's very rare on this market.
I agree. I think if that's the number, $5.5 million a year, and if he's your third receiver, love it. If he's your second receiver, I don't love it, but at least it's somebody that Dak knows well and plays well in your scheme. I understand. Last offensive guy, Conor Williams, 3 years, $20 million. $12.5 million guaranteed. That comes out to $6.6 million per year.
I
think that's palatable. If you want to,
that's why I'm sighing. Yeah, because I mean, I honestly think that is too. I mean, that's really not. I mean, it's less than $7 million a year.
Played a ton of snaps for you.
Yeah, I mean, he's actually one of the most reliable offensive linemen as far as physically being healthy enough to play. I know the Cowboys fans hate him. Like, they just can't stand him. They've gotten in their head that he can't play. But I've also watched other guards and other teams play, and I watched the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So I think that I honestly don't know that the Cowboys will get him, because I do think that I think his market is better than this. Honestly, I think
100% agree.
I think he's going to get way more money than this, because.
But if that's the number, I'm
in the market.
I'm in the market because I sign him and I eliminate one of my biggest draft needs. Right now in the first round, if I do lose Amari, right, you could justify drafting a receiver more, or you can justify drafting an edge rusher more if you lose DeMarcus Lawrence or whatever. But that number is too low for me.
Yeah, and Conor Williams is not a bad player. I mean, he's a top, half of the league guard.
Yeah,
which I know is hard to believe for a lot
agree.
of, but I think he's at least that, and he's a reliable player. Does he have weaknesses to his game? Yeah, but every NFL player does. Yeah. So
it's just,
I think he's a whipping boy for a lot of reasons, for no reason this season.
I mean, if you're using a first round pick on somebody to replace Conor Williams, they got to be a whole lot better, right? You almost have to get a Pro Bowl level player with that price, because that's just the price of I don't even want to say a good guard. That's just the price of a starting guard in the NFL today. It just is.
Yeah.
Cam Irving as a tackle got like $10 million a year last year.
Yeah. Well, what did the 24th overall pick get last year in money? I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
pretty close. It's got to be
pretty close to this.
Right?
And you're getting a guy who has experience, so I think it's it makes sense. I mean, that's why it would become palatable. Is like, well, would you rather spend the same amount of money on a starting guard that is only 24 years old still, guys? Like, that's the thing. He can still get better. And or would you rather spend that money and a draft pick on a starting guard? I think if this is the number, the Cowboys should make inquiries about bringing it back.
100% agree. All right, let's get to the defensive guys. There's only a few here that we need to look at. What about Leighton Van Daresh at his contract? They have him 3 years, $25.5 million, $16.5 million guaranteed, $8.5 million a year.
No, I think I'm done there.
I'm good.
I'm sure there's an opportunity for him to go somewhere and be a lot better. I don't doubt that maybe he has a career resurgence someplace, but I'm not taking that chance. There's just too much risk there. I mean, the injuries, even when he's healthy, he's not playing fantastic anymore.
I would say he's an average to maybe slightly above average linebacker, right?
Yeah.
Which is fine. And there are teams out there that would love to have a guy like Leighton Van Daresh that have cap space, right? The Chargers, I think, are second in the league in cap space. They probably would love to pay a guy like this $8 million a year just because they've had such a big hole. The Cowboys, who are up against the cap, this is one you could live with if you move on.
I agree. Yeah, let's get a low comp pick for whatever he gets signed for. I just think that he's not the kind of linebacker that the Cowboys are trying to get right now. They need to find a guy that can shed on his own and make tackles, especially if you're going to be using Parsons all around the field.
Two more guys left. Jaron Kearse, 3 years, $15 million total, $8 million guaranteed, $5 million total. I'm sorry, $5 million per year. I'm sorry.
I would be surprised if do you think I would be surprised if he signed a 3-year deal.
You think he wants to do a shorter term deal?
I would think he would probably want a longer term deal, but I just don't know that he's. I think if he signs a 3 years deal, it's going to be a very team friendly, escapable deal. You know what I'm saying? Like,
my guess though, if the Cowboys had a 3-year deal, it's this year's cap number is really, really low, and it balloons up maybe at the end. That's why I think 3 years actually would make sense for both the Cowboys and for Kearse, because he's somebody who was he was a low end draft pick that's bounced around the league. He hasn't got a big paycheck, so if he can take a longer term deal, help the team's cap situation this year, and get more guaranteed money, I could see it.
Yeah, I mean, he is 28 years old, but so like 3-year deal is probably getting the last 3 useful years out of his body or near it. So I would definitely make sure that you have contingencies on the back end of that deal. But I'm interested in having Kearse back. That's for sure.
Last two, and they have actually the same price tag. Malik Hooker, 1 year, $2.5 million. KZ, $1.25 million.
I think it's Hooker, right? I mean, to me, I don't know what DQ is going to pick, but I think that Hooker was playing better football at the end of the year, playing more consistent football than I've seen him play in a while. Yeah. I just think he's a clearly better player at this point.
Yeah. I actually wouldn't hate if they bought back both, because
I wouldn't either.
If you're paying those two guys a combined $5 million and you have a little bit of depth there now, it's not terrible, right?
I mean,
you can actually play them together.
Honestly, if you're paying $15 million next year for 3 of your for 3 basic starting safeties that rotate,
and one can play linebacker,
sign me up. Yeah, that's a good deal.
Give me Hooker and KZ at $5 million a year over Van Daresh at $8 million a year.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I think that makes a ton of sense. All right. That's it for our Cowboys free agency preview. We do have one more segment left. It's Mock Draft Monday. But before we get to that, I want to tell you guys about BetOnline. Football might be over this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the #1 spot for all of your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. Layton, it's time for Mock Draft Monday. And today we are taking a look at the Ringer's latest mock draft via Danny Kelly. And at pick number 24, he has the Cowboys ignoring their offensive line need and selecting your guy, Devin Lloyd, linebacker from Utah.
My guy, Devin Lloyd.
Yeah. He actually has Nakobe Dean going after this at pick 28. But if Devin Lloyd is the pick at 24, how are you feeling?
Feeling pretty good. I mean, I think Devin Lloyd at 24 is good spot for value. And I think he's probably, one of the best off-ball linebackers in coming out in the draft this year, if not the best. Mm-hmm. And I think, as a fit with Micah Parsons, we talked about, I think he would be a good one. He has that kind of similar, not quite the same level of Micah Parsons, mm-hmm. but a similar ability to kind of move around a little bit and play a couple different spots. Very young to the position, so he has some upside there. I think you'd have two big, athletic, versatile linebackers on your second level, and that would allow your defense to do a lot of really fun things. So I definitely love the pick. I think that it may not make a lot of Cowboys Nation necessarily thrilled to be picking an off-ball linebacker for the second year in a row, but I do think that there's some reason to that madness. It
probably depends on what they do in free agency, right? If they bring back Conor Williams at $6 million a year, I think you could stomach a pick like Lloyd a lot better, right? Because now you don't have a pressing need on your offensive line. We'd see about receivers and how they handle that, but I think Lloyd would make your defense a whole lot better. And we talk about this all the time. You can find starting level guards in the second, third round, right? That's where most teams do that. I think Cowboy fans have been so spoiled and they're used to only first round picks starting on the offensive line. How about this team draft and develop some offensive linemen, Layton? How about they do that for once?
I mean, they certainly could. I mean, they certainly don't necessarily need to give up on Connor McGovern. They don't necessarily need to give up on some of these down guys. I don't know if they're ready to accept it. But even then, we haven't talked about the offensive line market. But the offensive line market isn't terrible either. There's some other guys in there that if you don't necessarily want to go out and get Conor Williams, you could go get a temporary situation to kind of plug and play while you're waiting for a guy to develop. So, I think that, there is a lot of different ways to go in this draft pick. I mean, we're way early. Obviously, we haven't even gotten into free agency yet. But I think the thing to remember as we all kind of do our scouting at this point and kind of fall in love with our pet cats and fall in love with our picks at 24 is that, it's all going to look completely different on the other side of free agency. And not only just because of who the Cowboys sign, but also because they will let it be known their intentions a little bit more,
like we knew last year, like we knew that they wanted Patrick Surtain or JC Horn at 10, and neither of those guys were available. The name that we heard mentioned over and over again if we get wiped out, Parsons would be the guy. It's exactly the way it played out.
Yeah. And some people are on Twitter getting really mad about it suddenly for no reason, which is weird. I think it's funny because we get these, this is the time of the year we're learning these guys, right? And we get really, tied into certain guys, but the reality is not only do they see these guys differently than we do, they see their situation differently than we do. And I think they may have that information now, but they'll unfold to us what their plans are, throughout the training camp as we get peeking in through keyholes.
Last thing I want to mention about, Devin Lloyd. According to Danny Kelly, his best NFL comp is Isaiah Simmons. How do you feel about that? Very similar in terms of size.
They're similar in size. I would say they're also similar in the sense that I think they're kind of newer to the position. I can't remember. I mean, Simmons played all over the place, but I think that the fact that Lloyd, former wide receiver convert, there's athletically, I think there's a good fit there. I think Lloyd knows, even though he doesn't know what he's doing very well, I feel like he probably knows what he's doing at linebacker better than Simmons did, at least coming out of college. So, yeah. But I think that's a fair comparison, to be sure.
And I know people are listening to this right now saying Devin Lloyd's never going to fall. Linebackers fall in the draft. They just do, right? They really do.
I don't want to hear the never going to fall thing again, honestly. Like, after all the things we've witnessed over the years of guys that were, we didn't even look at that fell to us, including CeeDee Lamb, but other folks than like that. It's Des Bryant was never going to fall to it. It's like I've heard this so many different times. You just got to prepare for all these guys. Maybe not the top certain number one guys. I don't think we needed to watch Trevor Lawrence last year, but I mean, almost everybody else. At least get some eyeballs on, just so you know.
Yeah, I just think linebackers tend to fall.
And linebacker, especially
even Parsons, like last year. Like a lot of people, I remember Pro Football Focus calling him the best linebacker prospect they've ever seen. And he got picked at 12. And if Dallas doesn't pick him at 12, I wonder how far he falls. Does he fall to the teens or whatever? I mean, Devin Lloyd isn't the prospect that Isaiah Simmons is. He isn't the prospect that Micah Parsons is. And with another good linebacker prospect in Roquan Smith. Again, Freudian slip. The Kobe Dean, who knows? Who knows how far somebody like that could fall? So, all right, that is it for today's show. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, you can download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow the show at Locked On Cowboys. You can follow Layton at McCool BCB. I'm at Marcus _Mosher. We'll see you guys next time.